Good evening, everybody. My name is Ben, and I've decided I'm going to start a YouTube channel, mostly because I want to have a bit of a rant, and naturally, I like the idea of ranting to others. So, I've got my drink here, and I'm going to go through some of my notes, because this week has been very interesting, to say the least. So, a lot of people have made the argument that we're on the verge of a civil war here in the United States. And they might be right. Now, of course, you shouldn't want a civil war. But it very well may happen. And I do think we need to be prepared for that. Because it's going to be hard. It's going to be horrible if it happens. But I do think we will come out better on the other side of it. Now, I don't want it to happen. I would rather find a different solution. And that's probably a crazy thing for me to say. But this video is my case for rejecting the black pill. And to reject the black pill, you have to be a bit of an optimist, I guess you'd say. So, a lot of people in my position rightfully reject the blue pill. I like to call it the blue suppository. And they skip over it, and they skip over the red one, and they go straight to the black pill. Now, this idea that society is doomed, that everything is over, civilization is going to collapse, it's an easy position to fall into. And I myself have done that a few times, but I've found it's not helpful, and I also don't think it's realistic. We've noticed society, not directly, through written evidence, but we've noticed society goes through these cycles. And something that comes to mind is the famous works of Strauss and Howe, The Fourth Turning. Fantastic publication, highly recommend. And they're right, I think they're right. It's very cyclical, society. It has ups, it has downs, it has a lot of repeating patterns. They say about every 81 years, I believe, or 84 years, I think is the one they put forth. And I think it's stupid to think that we are different somehow, that we are exempt from this natural progression and regression of society. And I think to take the black pill makes you a weak target when shit inevitably does hit the fan, as it most likely will at some point. Now, the case I'm making today is mostly for men of my age. So I'm 29. I'm a little older than, I guess, what you would call Gen Z. I'm kind of right on that boundary. But so you could call me a millennial, a young one, and that would be an accurate assessment of my age. But the case I make is for men around my age, so late teens, into their 20s, and into their 30s and 40s. I've not heard of any men peaking physically in their 50s, but there's plenty of men who are very strong below the age of 40, especially in the mid-20s. And so my main argument is that as men in this age range, we hold all the societal power. We hold all of the cards. Because if everything that happens today, so all these failings of society, all of these actions that occur without consequences, we could stop them if we wanted to. But we don't. We allow it to continue. And I think that's predominantly because of the blue pill, because of the black pill. These are ideologies that teach us to submit and to not stand up. A great example is women's rights, actually. So if every man on the planet, or not every on the planet even, but if every man here in the United States our age got together and we just decided, like, hey, no, actually women aren't going to vote anymore. There's literally not a thing they could do about it. They didn't get the right to vote because they fought a bloody war over it, right? They got the right to vote because they convinced men to give it to them, and men have allowed it, right? Voting used to come with all kinds of social obligations. You had fire lines, you had taxes, you had the draft, and women just kind of conned men into giving them this right without any of the responsibilities attached to it. Now, I'm not saying we should go out and take the right of women's vote away, although I think society probably would be better off for that. But it's simply to make a point that if we wanted something done, we have the capacity to actually get it done. And there's nobody else could push back. No one else could stop it, right? So anyway, the reason I make this video is because I've been watching a lot of the footage from protests out of Minnesota. And I've noticed something really interesting about the protests, if you want to call them that, insurrection, whatever, doesn't really matter. And I'm not the first person to make this observation. This observation has been made multiple times before. But I have noticed that in this protest, as well as all the others, there's only a few types of people that are there. It's not men our age. It's not even, it's really not even like minority populations. It's not even immigrants. It's only a few types of people. Specifically, I break it into 3 types of men and 3 types of women. And the first group of men and women is the same across both men and women, and that's the geriatrics. Those are the boomers. So they're the 1960s hippie women. They're trying to relive their prime days back when, when they were desirable. They smoked a lot of wacky tobacco at Burning Man, and they're trying to relive those days, right? Because they're deeply unhappy with their lives in most cases, and probably somewhat bored. Now, their husbands often kind of shuffle along behind them, so they can appear the part, because a lot of these older men, they have a lot of social institutions that they still hold in high regard. Men our age don't really have trust in institutions, but boomer men still do. They have a lot of trust and respect for, the homeowners association, the church that they go to. And so they're there with their wife and, happy wife, happy life. They kind of say yes, dear, to every single thing, and they do whatever to keep the image up and appease those institutions, and so that's kind of the first group of people that's there. The group that hasn't been employed in the last 30 years, their last 30 years. The funny thing is the second group of people also haven't been employed for 30 years. But for this group of people, it's their first 30 years. So these are the screeching feminists. These are usually women, they're about my age, maybe a little older, and shaved head or half their head shaved. Usually it's just like the side. Blue hair, not in the old blue hair way, but just the other blue hair way. And this group is fairly self-explanatory, right? These are the words or violence people who think, oh my gosh, you said a word, therefore violence, because they've never experienced any actual hardship, right? These are women predominantly who can afford luxury beliefs because the welfare state caters to them in every single scenario. So obviously there's not really anything they can do about real power. You have a group of men that are often there with these women, and these are the cucks. These are the second group of men. They're the blue pill husbands of the screeching feminists, the boyfriends and the husbands, and they're the ones who, they really believe in women empowerment. They're kind of raised to hate themselves. They're a little different than the geriatric men. These men often don't have trust in institutions. They just kind of roll over. They really just participate in their wives' delusions. These are the men who, oh yes, dear, you can sleep with 14 guys. I'll pull up a chair and watch. They just get trampled. Now, I think the good news is these guys probably can be saved. They'll probably come around, because I think what's going to happen is a lot of them are probably going to be divorced in 3 to 10 years. because screeching feminists divorce their husbands. That's just what they do. So, they'll come around, and the family court system will burn them enough times, and eventually they'll wake up probably and take the red pill. I would hope. But the first thing they need to do, of course, is to remove the blue suppository, and that's primarily the issue they run into. Now, the last group of women, I call these the friends of the feminists. So these are women who, they're a little younger than me. Actually, they're usually not quite as old as the feminists, but they kind of just hang around to make themselves feel better. So usually they're a little bit, a little bit more attractive, because women are very competitive and very hypergamous, right? And they're kind of like sneaky competitive. So a lot of these times you'll see a little bit younger, attractive women who kind of insert themselves in feminism so that they can be around less attractive women to feel better about themselves. A lot of these women are probably kind of bored. They can usually hold down a job. Usually they're just kind of like struggling through life. And they're generally not activists themselves. Usually they're a little bit liberal, but they kind of secretly want a guy to come rough them up a bit. They're usually into the rough kind of domination stuff, which, hey, whatever, each to their own, I guess. So, let's see, where was I? Lost my place on the notes. Oh, yeah, right here we are. So, yeah, they generally don't believe in this stuff, right? But they show up and they kind of, stand to the side, and if they're asked a question, I don't really have an opinion on that. I don't really know. They're just there because it's convenient. It gives them some social points, garners their ego. They can feel good about themselves. The last group of people isn't really even worth talking about. These are the tail chasers. So these are men about our age who, let's be honest, they don't believe any of this stuff. They're just there to get laid. They show up to find some bridge troll to take back home. So, yeah, they don't believe the propaganda. They'll come around. So the point of all this, the reason I say all this, is because knowing that these are the people we're up against, these are the actual people who are out there protesting. These are the people who are out there trying to protect this broken, failed, boomer world order, right? They have no real power. The boomers are dying, okay? They'll die off soon enough. And quite frankly, the women out there don't really have much of a choice on this if we woke up. In fact, I would say over half of these women, immediately would come around. I mean, look at this example online, right? We had all these women online screeching about Handmaid's Tale, and then the instant Islam showed up to their city, they throw a hijab on, and all of a sudden they're like an Islamic woman, right? They don't actually believe in any of this, feminism, none of that. They just want structure. They just need structure in their lives, which is where most women are. They just need strong structure. So, a reason I'm making this video is because, unfortunately, this administration is a little disappointing. I did vote for Trump, but I'm going to admit that he's kind of a pussy, which is unfortunate, because he won't do anything about this, right? The reason all this is happening is because like I say, it's allowed to happen. So I think that is the importance of making a video like this, is to reiterate that we don't have to allow any of this to happen, right? Now, that doesn't mean, and I want to be very clear, that does not mean we should go out as men and start shit. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. That's a bad idea, okay? But what it is important to realize is that we have the capacity to project our influence, and we need to embrace that, right? So what does that mean? What does it look like? What should we do? I would say, really, it's a couple things. The first thing is, as men, I think we need to lead. I think we have an obligation to be leaders. Like I say, a lot of the people who are out there, a lot of it is driven by women who are out there, because women strongly desire leadership in their lives. And you've noticed that all these people who go out and protest, it's the women who primarily make the decision, and the men just follow them out, right? So I think we need to flip that on its head. If we have families, we need to lead our families, okay? We need to be absolutely unapologetic in our opinions, okay? The days of backing down, the days of capitulation, they need to be over. Okay, no more going out to the bar, no more pretending when you're at the bar to hold a different political opinion to get laid. Okay, silently walking away when you see somebody doing something wrong instead of confronting them. That is what causes this. That all needs to end. We can't lie to ourselves. We can't lie to others. We need to be unapologetic. Okay, and we need to let every single person know our opinion. I think that's very important. Don't worry about what they call you, okay? What they call you is completely irrelevant. People are going to call you an ist. They're going to call you a phobe. Okay, they're going to call you a Nazi. Whatever you say, it doesn't even matter. I mean, look what it's gotten, men, right? The boomer men all basically just rolled over and yes, dear, whatever you like, dear. And somehow at the end of that, they still found themselves in a society where men were demonized. So doing that isn't going to help you. Okay? So don't worry about what they're going to call you, because they're going to call you that no matter what. Right? They did it to the boomers. They'll do it to us. So the second thing I think that we need to do is prepare. Okay, train, prepare, get into shape, right? We have a unique capacity as men to fight and protect our way of lives, to protect our families if we have them, to protect the things we love, right? Men built the West, okay? And men have protected civilizations for thousands of years. So being a guy who takes the black pill and just gives up and sinks into a dark room, never to be seen again, it's not something we should be doing. It doesn't serve our interests, and it doesn't help society. So again, I'm not saying that we should go out and start anything. That's not the case. But we absolutely should be capable of ending whatever was started. If someone comes to your house and starts shit, you need to be able to end it. That is your duty. That is your responsibility as a man. There's a really good quote, and I attempted to find it, but Google just referred a bunch of domestic violence hotlines, and violence is bad, and don't Google violence, that's terrible. So I'll just paraphrase the quote from memory, but it basically goes like this. Peace requires the capacity for violence. If you can't be violent, then you aren't being peaceful, you're being weak. Again, I wish I could have found that quote, so if you know it, put it in the comments, because I would be really interested in reading it word for word. But I think it's very true, especially for us men. I think we need to regain our power, and that doesn't mean be the loudest voice in the room, that doesn't mean scream, that doesn't mean hit or punch anyone, but it does mean that you are capable of ending somebody else's shit that they started. So anyway, that's my first video. Like I said, my name is Ben, and I wanted to start this channel as well as record this video because these are my beliefs, and I think that helping young men my age realize that, yeah, the world is terrifying, and it's probably going to change rather soon, and possibly quite violently. I don't know. But I don't think that just rolling over or retreating into a dark hole somewhere helps us. I think it just makes us weak. And I just wanted to I just wanted to share my opinion that I think we really have a lot more power than the ruling class believes we do. And I don't think it's a bad thing to be capable of exercising that power. So hope to see you all soon, and thanks for watching. Have a great night.